It's time for the match preview. This week we're going to be talking about Luton Town travelling to Turf Moor to take on Burnley. And as you can see, there's no Mark Ryman. We got a special guest star with us this evening. It's YouTube sensation, Lewis Williams. How are we getting on, Lewis?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy. We haven't lost yet. So I still got the good winning feeling from Saturday. Just hope this Saturday that we might get a positive result.
Yeah, that is the case. It'll be all sunshine and rainbows until about 2:59 on Saturday, but we'll discuss the game a bit later. But for now, let's recap. The win, Luton Town 1, Portsmouth 0. So, Luton Town 1, Portsmouth 0. Can't get tired of talking about this. It was Luton Town's first win in 71 days. Now, do you reckon from this game we stick or twist? Because we've had a week off and that game was pretty good. I know I'm asking about the next game, but let's talk about this game. Do you reckon the players can pick up again and go again? Who impressed you?
I think you're going to have to. I think when you look at a lot of teams, when they are winning games of football, they are most of the time having a consistent starting 11. But with us, in the defensive aspect of our team, we're always changing. And I think that hasn't helped all season because players don't know how each other play. You don't know whether or not they can trust each other at the back. There's a lot of miscommunication. So I do think playing the same starting 11 will help. But of course, we've got to talk about our new boy in the defence in Makosso. What a performance, from him. He definitely impressed me. He impressed me when he came on against Watford in such a massive game. But his recovery is what is a real outstanding, quality he has. When a player looks like he's beating him, he just gets back with that power. A bit what Menji used to do. Well, when he was playing proper for us, he used to make that last minute recovery run, and that's what it reminds me of.
He had a few of those against Josh Murphy, and then against whoever replaced Josh Murphy in the second half. I think it was Christian Sadie, I think, that replaced him in the second half, and he had one in towards the Kenilworth Road ends, then he had one towards Block F, and that searing pace. I think you're a bit too young for Leon Barnett, and definitely too young for Emerson Boyce. His performance and play style kind of harks back to those two. But I want to focus on the midfield now, because when the team sheet was announced against Portsmouth and you saw Clark, Walsh, and Asgard ahead of them, that really worked for Portsmouth. But getting ahead of ourselves to Burnley, it's a completely different kettle of fish. But for that game, it really worked. That midfield three.
Yeah, Walsh, I think, in particular, a very disciplined performance. In his being able to retain possession of the ball, but also just not diving in as much as what he used to. I think that's kind of helped him. I think sometimes when I see him on the pitch, he looks a bit like, should I dive in right now or should I not? But that's why I call it disciplined. He's been a lot more disciplined, especially since coming back into the side. But he's been a massive stand-up. But yeah, him, Clark and Asgard, I think when you play the ball on the ground, I think those three players can link up quite well. But at the moment, we seem to be bypassing that midfield, going long to Morris, hoping that he controls it, links the play up, and then we kind of dictate the play in the opposition half. So going forward, I would like us to play out from the back, give Walsh the ball, because he's out of, I say, the whole midfield. He's probably the most comfortable with it, and he knows how to retain it, and then progress up the pitch that way, rather than always going long all the time.
Yeah, and would you agree that was probably Amari Bell's best performance for a long, long, long time?
Yeah, I said after my match, well, in my match reaction, I think that was his best performance in a Luton shirt since Matt Bloomfield has arrived, because he's been one of the players, especially one of the most experienced players, that's not stepped up at all. That was the old Amari Bell, and Matt Bloomfield's very vocal about he's very important to make the system work. Well, only if you keep putting in those types of performances.
Yeah, 100%. And it's tough to talk about this game without immediately wanting to talk about the Burnley game. Um, but just to summarize, how good does it feel to have won that game? A clean sheet at home. Um, do you think it sets us up for the rest of the season? Or is it a
Ho-
false dawn?
well, hopefully. I did leave the stadium with some confidence because before the game, I just accepted relegation because these group of players didn't give me any signs that they can win a game of football or show a bit of fight. They didn't even do it against Watford. So why would I expect anything against Portsmouth, that fight and determination? But against Portsmouth, we defended extremely well. Portsmouth, I don't think, made it easy. Some might say, yes, Portsmouth were poor, but Bishop up top for Portsmouth, he's a handful. He's an old school bully type of striker. He will make the defenders have a difficult game, and he made the defenders work really hard for 3 points. So walking away from that stadium, I saw a team that knew how to defend, because we haven't seen that all season. So that's why I think I've got that bit of confidence. Actually, if we can perform like that in some parts of that game, and also the Sheffield United game, some of the attacking display we showed there, and kind of like combine it all together with the defense and the attack, hopefully going forward against the teams around us in the Championship, we can pick up more points. But of course, Burnley, who are unbeaten at home all season, it's going to be tough.
I think that's a fair assessment. Look, Portsmouth came into the game having won 3 games on the spin. Uh, they're no mugs, and they have a player, Josh Murphy, that's being nominated for Player of the Month. They're no mugs, and we made Josh Murphy look relatively ordinary. Like, so much so he was having to have nibbles at Liam Walsh and be a bit of a bastard, really, if in all fairness. Right, but let's take a look ahead to the Burnley game. It's time for the team news. So, long-term absentee Reece Berg, who was described as behind Shandon Baptiste. So I guess that means Reece Berg is currently in a morgue. Joining him on the sidelines is Shandon Baptiste, Tahith Chong, Ted Mengi, Tom Lockyer, and Marv Nakamba, who is apparently now out for 6 weeks. The question is, stick or twist? Do we try and keep the same starting lineup, or what would you do, Lewis?
I would only make one change to the starting 11, and that would be up top alongside Morris. I would drop Brown and put Ali in. Now, the reason for this would be because I would like Luton to game manage the game against Burnley. And what I mean by that is we don't need to be front footed against Burnley. I know we need the points. I know we need to get points on the board. But again, for Burnley, the way they like to play their football, it's more suited away from home where teams actually come at them. They actually struggle to break teams down. That's why at home they've drawn so many games. That's why they struggle to score more than one goal. So I want us to be a little bit smart here. Allow Burnley to attack us, and why don't we counter them? Why don't we be that counter-attacking side? Because it's something which I haven't really seen Luton ever do, really, be a very counter-attacking team. So with Ali, with his pace up top, I think we could use that to our advantage and use the wide players in Isaiah Jones's pace down on the right-hand side and also Alfie on the left-hand side. But also, Burnley, their defenders are aggressive. They love defending. So Ali, with his non-league background, he's used to playing against centre halves. Just kick him. So as he's used to those types of centre halves that are just used to just going through you rather than actually wanting to win the ball, I think he'd be more suited compared to Brown, because what I've seen from Brown in recent games, he just keeps falling into the ground. And I just don't think you could do that. The referee isn't giving cheap fouls now. They're kind of being not as whistle happy. We're seeing it with Morris. Morris ain't getting as many fouls as he expects, and he puts in a proper, battle with the defender. So I would like to see Ali alongside Morris, but I think the same defence, same midfield. It doesn't make sense to change the defence, in my opinion.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. Look, I'm not Jacob Brown's biggest advocate. I don't think he gives us what we're spending on him per week, regardless of what the rumored wages are. I don't think he's that good a player. I would have taken Tyrese Campbell every day of the week from Stoke rather than Jacob Brown. It's interesting. Your point about Millie Ali, I think it's a good shout, because one thing that we do need, if we are able to find those passes between the lines, we need someone with a bit more pace. Like Brown. Brown's not a slouch, but he's not quick. And he's also very lightweight. He does go to grounds, and Burnley's defence, they'll just pass it around him. Like, he'll just be running around like a headless chicken. Whereas Millie Ali, like, yes, he has the pace to chase that. Maybe play him for like 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, and then bring on some fresh legs. I completely agree. I don't think for this one, I don't think Nordas is probably the option next to Morris, because you don't want two big bruisers who are just going to be backing into the defenders. You want someone that's able to spin off one of the defenders. And yeah, I completely agree. We need pace, because no one likes defending against pace. And this is a Burnley team that have only conceded 10 goals now in the league. No one likes pace. And, Doughty, he is fast. He's definitely faster than Brown, but he's not as fast as Isaiah Jones. And I think Ali could be a good shout there. So you'd stay the same 3-5-2.
Yeah, I stay 3-5-2. Your comment about Nordas. I just feel like when you've got two strikers, so him and Morris, they're quite similar. So you're not. I feel like you need to have something different up top, because if Burnley know, right, we've got two big Luton strikers to deal with all afternoon, they know what we're going to do. They know that we're just going to go long and we're not going to have a different alternative. And if we want to progress up the pitch, we need to have something different. And at least Ali would definitely give us something different alongside Morris. And I thought he did well when he came on against Portsmouth. He did hold the ball up quite well. But yeah, I feel like the midfield, Walsh has been brilliant. Clark, I don't think you could drop him after scoring, but apparently he is, playing through painkillers. I think he's having injections as well. So we've got to be careful with him. We've got to manage him. But then again, our midfield's quite lightweight at the moment, because we've got a couple of injuries in the midfield.
Who else can play? Who else steps in if Jordan Clark can't do it? It can't be Baptiste. I wouldn't want Baptiste even if he was fit. And Marv is out. Zach Nelson played a couple of minutes there, didn't he, against Pompey? Who is there?
Yes.
There's no one.
That's what I mean. I think we miss not getting another centre mid in the January transfer window. It feels mad because, Moses has not been playing. We've not seen him or heard about him since the start of the year. So maybe we could have cancelled his contract and maybe have got another play through the door. So then we were okay with squad numbers. I'm not too sure. But yeah, for me, the only real change I would make would be up top. But it wouldn't surprise me to see Bloomfield also play McGuinness in the defence alongside Cal Naismith. But I think that would be very harsh on Makosso.
Yeah, that is a very good point. It would be really harsh, but McGuinness, he has a bit more experience. Yes, he's young, but he's not as mobile as Makosso. Maybe it means Cal Naismith moving to the left centre back. Murray Bell doesn't play there, and McGuinness slots into the middle and Makosso on the right. I don't know. It's a headache that fortunately I don't need to have. Or maybe Jordan Clark steps out, Naismith goes into midfield with Liam Walsh and Theo Asgard. That's a potential way around it. And then you can slot McGuinness in the middle. But then you lose that sort of leadership that McGuinness gives across the back line, because I think part of the reason Amari Bell's been playing better is because he has McGuinness in his ear. Not McGuinness, Naismith in his ear, telling him, now push up, now tuck in, now stay close to me. You can't underestimate how much of a leader Cal Naismith is and how important he will be if we are to stay up.
Yeah, I think with Cal Naismith, well, I think moving him into the midfield will require him to work a little bit more, and we need to be careful with him. So I think, although he will work, of course, in defence, but we've got to manage him correctly over these next 11 games, because without him, I just cannot see the system working. I can't see us winning games of football. That leadership, the organisation, as you mentioned, without that, we've been missing it all season. So now we've finally got it. It's like, wow, we look different, especially in defence. And hopefully he's going to replicate what Cameron Carter-Vickers did when we brought him on loan during that year where we stayed up in the Championship. Because what a player, Cameron Carter-Vickers was in keeping us up. So if he can carry on the way he's doing, Cal Naismith, it shows you that we do know how to get a good loan centre-half in the January transfer window.
But no central midfielders, especially after losing Tom Krause. Right, time for our next segment. And I think we settled on a name. It's called Have We Met Before? As always, you need to be checking out hattersheritage.co.uk for all your Luton Town information. We got player profiles, we got staff profiles, we got directors, we got every single match that Luton Town have played since the inception of the football club. And on our statistics page, we have the ability to filter per team. So today I'm going to be asking Lewis a question about who has played the most against Burnley. So the most a player has played against Burnley is Bob Morton, and he played 9 times against Burnley. Alan West also played 9 times. Ricky Hill, belated birthday to Ricky Hill, he played 9 times. Marvin Johnson played 9 times. And then there's a whole list of players that played 8 times, 7 times. And now I'm looking for 3 current players from the Luton Town squad who have all played 4 times against Burnley. Any guess as to who these 3 players are?
I'm going to go, my first guess is going to be Elijah Adebayo.
Correct.
Okay, that's 1. Right. I'm going to go with Alfie Doughty.
Incorrect.
Oh, damn it. Clark.
Incorrect.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right. Now I've got my thinking hat on. I don't know if Morris has.
Correct, but Morris has, yeah.
Oh, okay. Why did Clark not? Okay, right. So you've got those 2 players. So Luton Town squad. Thomas?
No.
Oh, okay. Really? Oh, wow. That's okay.
Yeah, well, remember, he didn't play the second game last season against Burnley.
Oh.
For the heart issues. There is 1 more player, and they are a defender.
Defender, Amari Bell.
Yes, Amari Bell. So how many goals has Colton Morris? Both Colton Morris and Elijah Adebayo have scored against Burnley. How many goals have they scored against Burnley? Bonus question.
Oh, I'm going to go with 1.
Yeah, they both scored a goal apiece against Burnley. That was fun. And remember, as always, I'll put the link in the description below. Check out hattersheritage.co.uk. It's a website that you can literally spend hours and hours and hours on. It is tremendous. And we're always looking for volunteers and patrons. So make sure if you have some time, volunteer. If you have some spare cash, donate it. It's a charitable foundation. Right, but now let's kick it over to Phil, who met with the opposition. Take it away, Phil.
Thank you, Ollie, and thank you, Lewis. Good to hear from you, Lewis. Hope you're doing well, mate. As for me today, I've got Joe from the Turfcast joining me today. Last time we spoke, it was the first game of the season, and things were very much more rosy in the garden of Luton Town. We were looking a lot more upward in terms of trying to bounce back into the Premier League before we got absolutely trounced, which is a real shame. But that sort of set the tone, really. And as for Burnley, they've gone from strength to strength, really. They've not played like they did against us. They lost a lot of players late in the transfer window, but they've replaced them with real solid players. So I'm looking forward to hearing about how the season's gone from Joe as we head towards Turf Moor at the weekend, and let's see what that brings about. I've predicted myself a 2-0 Burnley victory. Reasons for that are mainly because as much as we won our last game against Pompey, it wasn't a convincing performance that made me think that we can go away to the fortress that is Turf Moor, where they very, very seldom concede a goal and get something out of it. If we took a 0-0, I'd take it. And if we nicked a goal, I would certainly take it. But that's looking through slightly rose-tinted glasses for Luton Town. So we'll see how we get on. And like I say, listen up and take note of what Joe's got to say from the Turfcast. Okay, everyone. So, as promised, I've got Joe here, sipping his cup of coffee and getting warm again after an evening out, taking his little one to football training. But Joe, really, really nice to have you back, mate. Thoroughly thankful that you've taken the time to join us. And before we start, I know that attention spans are particularly short sometimes for football fans. So, do your bit of advertising, get a few people to give you an extra follow. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm Joe, as you've just said, and I run the Turfcast podcast, so that podcast and YouTube channel and social media pages. So just search Turfcast. We're on the main one we're on these days is Facebook, because X/Twitter, whatever it is just a cesspit these days. We still are on there as well, but most of the stuff goes onto YouTube, Facebook, and even Instagram and TikTok. I'm trying to do more stuff on TikTok, but if you just search Turfcast, you'll be able to find us. We will be doing sort of like a pre-game show with Phil pretty much straight after this as well. So if you want to see what we have to say on that one and then any reactions after the match, then feel free to check us out over on YouTube.
Lovely stuff. Cheers, mate. I think first thing that I wanted to bring up was just how different our seasons have gone. They've gone in totally different directions, and it was one of those ones where it was the first game. I was feeling relatively chipper at the time when we first spoke, and relatively hopeful that we would be in the mix for going back up. It's not obviously turned out that way, but this is about you guys. And I was looking through your team list when you played us versus what it's like now, and I think the major difference, as I see it, is that front four. It's that front four that you've got going up top. So, like at the start of the season, Koleosho started against us. You had Odebear, Vitinho, Lyle Foster's obviously still there, but you started. Whereas I was looking at the last lineup that you had, and you've obviously bought Edwards, who looks an incredible talent. You've got Hannibal Medjbury, Jaden Anthony, who's a fantastic player, and then you've got Zian Fleming. And I wondered if that was what your thoughts are on that, because obviously you blew us away. It was a totally different side, but that's not the way you've been winning games. I would argue. So how do you feel it's sort of, as a general thing, how do you feel it's gone with those quite exciting young players? But you obviously, like I say, you've been based on keeping clean sheets and being tough to beat.
Yeah, it's difficult because a lot of the players you mentioned there, I think Vitinho was a little bit deeper, to be fair, in that game. He did tend to play, I can't remember exactly on that game, but he did tend to play sort of like a little bit deeper. But I remember that we went to Kennel Road on the opening day of the season, and not to bring it all up to you guys listening, obviously everyone's a Luton fan, but obviously won 4-1 and blew you guys away. I'm sat there thinking, wow, we are going to be great this season, and it just hasn't panned out. I think looking back at that game now, it wasn't us being great; it was you being poor. And I think as the season's panned out, that's how it's turned out. But yeah, obviously Wilson Odebear, you mentioned, left. Koleosho, he's still here, but I don't think he suits the Parker system. But not all of it is to do with Parker. There is a lot of it where he gets into good positions and he chooses the wrong thing. Koleosho's a young footballer, and there's a big debate at Burnley at the minute whether he's good enough. He's definitely good enough, and he will go on to have a good career. Just as I've just said, I don't particularly think he suits the Scott Parker system. I think a lot of it is to do with tracking back and defending and things like that. And it's very cautious. It's very zonal, and I think Koleosho does struggle in that kind of system sometimes. Obviously we've got Edwards now, we've got Anthony. Anthony's relatively consistent, but a lot of fans don't particularly like him. It's bizarre. Like, he does get a bit of stick. And there are some people on our show, to be fair, that do criticise him every single week. But I think he's got, the last time I checked the stats, he created the 5th most chances in the Championship, so he's doing something right, and that's in a Scott Parker side. Marcus Edwards does look a class above, but he wasn't great against Cardiff, if we're going to be honest with you. But against Sheffield Wednesday, he did look a class above, and Lyle Foster, I think, don't know. I don't want to criticise him too much because I've recently been on the Sportsman Untitled and criticised him on there and then got a bit of stick for it. But I feel like I've defended him so much recently, Lyle Foster, and I'm at the stage now where I'm running out of patience with him. He scored 1 league goal this season, and that were against Blackburn, to be fair. So if you're going to score against anybody, score against them for us. But he's just not really hitting the heights that we expected of him. To be fair, to caveat that, some games recently he has been playing out on the left. But he did play up front against Preston recently in the Cup and offered absolutely nothing. Zian Fleming, again, he scored some goals. He scored more than Lyle this season, but I feel like Zian's more of a 10 and Parker's playing him in more of a 9 role. Again, there's a lot of square pegs round holes with Parker, and according to Fulham and Bournemouth fans, that does tend to be a thing.
Right.
But I would like to see Zian in the 10 more. And then I've always said Lyle in the 9, but recently I'm changing my mind on that. Like I said, I'm running out of patience with him. But Zian sometimes does get a bit of stick as well, even though he scored a few goals. But he's not a striker, and he's being asked to sort of like hold the ball up and run the channels and things like that. And it's just not his game. So I would like to see more of Zian in the 10. But yeah, the front four, obviously, it's well documented our problems going forward. We're not creating enough, we're not scoring enough. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's all about the defence, and that's where we've got to where we are in the league because of how good our defence is.
I mean, it's one of those things like looking from the outside in. Like again, that back sort of half of the side. There's only O'Shea that I could see that's different, and Egan Riley's in there, and it's one of those ones where I'm intrigued about him because, like I say, looking from the outside in, I don't watch every one of your games, but when I have seen you guys, he seems outwardly to buzz off of being a defender. Like the amount of last-ditch tackles he puts in and that sort of recovery that he seems to have. It's obviously a massive asset for a defender that they absolutely love doing it. And I wondered if he is the key, because I understand he didn't start against Preston in the Cup game. I know there was a few other changes as well, of course. Like I say, I'm not saying it's all about him, but how would you sum up his season in comparison to like losing O'Shea? Because obviously he's gone back up to the Premier League. He's that standard of player. Is it an improvement or?
No, I don't know. It's difficult to judge on a season in the Championship because O'Shea last season he was decent, but O'Shea'd be good for 85 minutes, and then for 5 minutes he'd daydream, be away with the fairies, and make a mistake, and then we concede from that mistake.
Yeah.
CJ hasn't done that this season, but when you're comparing, obviously you know yourselves, obviously you've just been promoted, you've spent 2 seasons in the Championship out of the last 3, it's a completely different league. For me to sit here and say CJ's an improvement when he's not playing in the Premier League would be a stretch too far, in my opinion. Yeah. But I wouldn't say he's the key, actually. I would say it's Esteve. In my opinion, Maxime Esteve is the best centre-back in the division alongside Pascal Struijk at Leeds. I think them two are fantastic. My only criticism of Esteve is that he doesn't put the ball in the opposition net enough. But having said that, he did it on Tuesday against Cardiff. So maybe he's listened to me and he's started thought, well, I'll start scoring some goals. But it's the entire back line. And let's not forget James Trafford, been fantastic this season. We've only conceded 10 goals. I do think, though, I know you mentioned the only one that didn't start against you guys was CJ. Pires would have started on the left. I do remember that game because he actually got 2 assists. And I remember that was his first game. And I remember everyone thinking, wow, this guy's class. He did end up getting dropped not long after that because he was getting done too easily. He's not that good at defending, if we're going to be brutally honest. We have had Bashir Humphreys at left back for a while, who recently had picked up an injury. And it's no coincidence that we have now suddenly started looking a little bit shaky at the back. We conceded against Cardiff. I don't think it came from his side, to be fair, but Pires was absolutely awful against Preston in the Cup. Like he did start in that game, and he was shocking, as was Oliver Son on the right-hand side. But obviously on the right-hand side, it's Connor Roberts. So I think the standout has been Esteve, but just going back to CJ, because obviously that was the question. CJ has actually been like a great surprise this season, because the last 2 years, like he has been part of the Burnley team, but he's been sent out on loan. Whereas this year we had like no choice but to play him, and he's been absolutely fantastic, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'd say Esteve is probably the better of the two centre backs. But yeah, it's Connor Roberts as well on the right hand side, who at the day of recording this just announced that he signed a new 2-year deal, and then obviously you've got James Trafford as well. So I think it's the entire unit and the cautious approach from Scott Parker, and I use the term cautious very lightly, because again I went on this Sportsman channel the other day and I said it. I said a cautious approach, and one of the first comments was "cautious approach" by Scott Parker. That's the understatement of the century. But I think it's all of them sort of like mixed into one. If I'm honest,
yeah, it's one of those things though. I mean, again, I remember talking to you quite vividly about it, and obviously there was trepidation about Scott Parker within the fan base, because it wasn't Vincent Kompany, you know, and I think that a lot of the feedback from the likes of Bournemouth and Fulham were the fact that he's let's go with another word, let's go like pragmatic, you know, he's
that's the way I like to describe him, because that's more positive.
yeah. So, but it is ultimately, the proof is in the pudding, really. Like I said to you, didn't I, about the fact that he's been promoted twice from this league with, granted, outstanding teams, but I thought it was a really thoroughly good appointment, and the proof is in the pudding, really. I mean, you're absolutely right in there. Like there's no doubt about it. I mean, obviously that you're a couple of points behind Sheffield United, and they've had their deduction, but they draw a game and you win one, and your goal difference, because simply you just don't concede. You bypass them, you know. So I think that has it softened at all about Scott Parker, or is it because of the way you're playing? It's still a bit of is he still fighting a bit of a battle to win some over?
Yeah, he is. And I don't want to get on my high horse, but I'm very surprised to see how our fan base acting the way they have been acting this season. I feel like that Vincent Kompany season has completely spoiled the fan base. We won on Cardiff. We won on Tuesday against Cardiff. The last 30 minutes weren't pretty. We went 2-0 up. We conceded a silly goal. I've just been waxing lyrical about Marcus Edwards, but it was his fault. Passed the ball back, silly pass. Connor Roberts dallying a little bit, and then they concede there. I feel like Connor Roberts was more at fault, if I'm being honest with you. But that's a different debate. And then the last 30 minutes, 35 minutes, it was all Cardiff, if I'm going to be honest with you. But we dug in. Defensive shape was good. We got the win. Cardiff probably should have scored late on, if I'm being honest with you. So, again, immediately hypocritical of the defensive shape couldn't have been that good. But literally, we'd won. We went 2 points off top two, and I was seeing shouts for Parker out on Twitter. And this is what I mean about Twitter. I just can't. Sometimes I log on in a good mood and I log off in a bad mood. I'm like, I don't need that in my life. But that is where a lot of the fan base is at now. I say a lot. I do feel like it's a vocal minority. I feel like the majority of fans look at it, look at the league position, look at everything he had to deal with in the summer with selling all these players. I remember in the lead up to the 31st, which the day we played Blackburn, by the way. And obviously, if there's one game you want to prepare well for, it's that game. We're just selling everybody. And then was like, we're going to have any players left. And then 2 more would leave. Then there'd be rumours another one would leave. And then we'd bring a couple in and we're like, what's going on? So I think dealing with all that, to get where he is now and to be within the mix, like I think we're only like 5 points off Leeds off the top of my head. I can't remember. You know, they've been magnificent this season. They will win the league and they'll deserve to win it. But yeah, I do feel like the football is the main concern for some of these fans, and I genuinely believe that some of them they wouldn't be happy if we won. Like we did win 4-0 recently, and some people are still mourning because the last game was only 2-1. Like in our last 2 games, league games. Where we played the main team, you know, we've scored 6 goals, and then some people are saying, "Oh, the football's boring. We don't score enough." Like I put a tweet up earlier as well, a Facebook post. I can't remember. So like saying these are the games for the rest of the season. Like these are Leeds' games, Sheffield United games, or Sunderland games. And somebody put, "Does anyone think we'll score more than 10 goals in the next 11 games?" And I just reminded that person. I was like, "We scored 6 in our last 2, mate. What are you on about?" As people just love to mourn. So I do feel like the football. So some people will never be won over by him in this fan base, if I'm going to be brutally honest, and it is the cautious football or boring football, as some people like to describe it. But we had Sean Dyche for 9 years, and you know what I mean. So it's not that different.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, you didn't say these words. I'm putting words in your mouth, but the effect of what you're saying is like you were spoilt by having the company years, you know, like and like I say, ultimately he was very fortunate in a weird way that he managed to have a whole season in the Premier League still playing in that way.
Yeah.
Like that. Let's be honest about it. Like
In hindsight, I agree. Yeah.
Our mutual relegation seasons where we both stuck with our managers. Obviously, they ended up going in very different directions, but he lucked out. And like I say, maybe because he's at Bayern Munich, could, as I perceive it, potentially be a reason why people sort of.
Well, this is why Russell Martin were doing it at Southampton. He's seen Vincent Kompany fail upwards, and he's thinking, well, I can fail upwards.
Yeah.
But the difference is he's an Englishman. Vincent Kompany, I think Vincent Kompany isn't. Watch this, he'll be Scottish or something. Vincent Kompany isn't, and he's a big name, and everyone loves him.
His playing career trumps it, doesn't it? That's the thing that he always had. Back
in day when I used to play Football Manager, if I put my playing career as superstar or whatever it was, I'd get offered jobs left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
Put my playing career as like Sunday League footballer, I'd struggle to get a job if I won league, and it's exactly the same sort of thing.
Yeah. And he's a Pep Guardiola disciple. Let's be honest with you. Like anyone that sort of rubs shoulders with Pep, especially if you're his team captain, the job offers are going to be flooding in, aren't they?
Yeah.
But, I mean, I could be asking you an impossible question, Joe. It's literally just sprouted into my mind. But if Burnley go up, right? Let's hope for your sake that they go up, right? For the sake of this conversation, do you think there'll still be calls for Scott Parker to have done his job and disappear? And you do.
Yeah, I genuinely believe if we won at Wembley, someone would say that night on Twitter, "Now's the time to sack him." I genuinely believe that. that. I just feel like I said, I feel like some fans feel like because when we went up and absolutely trumped the league, trounced the league, under the Vincent Kompany season, and we all went up with arrogance, if you will. I remember being sat there on the overlap and saying things like, Burnley are going to finish at worst 14th. And obviously I think a lot of us got burnt by that season. So I think some fans will be like, well, this team is worse, so this team will definitely do worse in the Premier League than what a Vincent Kompany team did. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think ultimately if we went up this season, we do go down next season, but I just think that's the nature of the beast these days. I think it'd be the same for Sheffield United. And Leeds if they didn't invest, but Leeds will obviously invest quite a lot. But if we did get promoted, I feel like this team is not in a better place to survive in the Premier League, but I feel like they're in a better place to stay in games longer in the Premier League, if that makes sense. I feel like we'll stay in games longer instead of being 3-0 down after 8 minutes like we were in some games under Kompany. But ultimately, we'll lose 2-0 instead of 6-0, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's a different conversation entirely, really, isn't it? Like the state of the gap between the Premier League, and obviously, please don't take this as a nasty sort of comment, but you have become one of those yo-yo teams, like the sort of like the Norwiches, the Sheffield Uniteds.
It never bothers me that. Yeah, it never bothers me. It's funny because I see some people sometimes say, "Oh, Burnley are a yo-yo club now," and some Burnley fans on Twitter get offended. It's like, in the last few years, we've been relegated, got up, relegated. How more would you define a yo-yo club? But then some fans are like, we're in the Premier League for 8 years. We're not a yo-yo club. It's like, we weren't then, but we are now. So and I'd rather be a yo-yo club than a Stoke. You know what I mean? So it could be worse.
Or a Luton fan.
I nearly said Luton, but I thought I can't say Luton on a Luton show.
I'll say it, mate. Don't worry. I'll say it. It's all good. Okay, Joe. Look, let's get to the sort of crux point about it. And it's a case of your prediction for the weekend. So obviously, just to be upfront with you, I've been upfront with my side of the fan base, and I've said that I feel like if we could get anything out of you guys, I think it'll be a case of a 0-0, just purely because of the things that we discussed earlier on about breaking tough down. But ultimately, I don't see it happening. I've put you down as a 2-0 win. So what are your thoughts? Is there anything in terms of team selection that you can share insight with? And ultimately, also, can you give your prediction to how you think it's going to go?
Yeah, not to be boring or anything, but I completely agree, and I was going to say 2-0 as well. You are more likely to score than what you would have been 6 weeks ago because of the aforementioned injury to Bashir Humphries. If you want to target Lucas Perez on our left-hand side, if you've got any decent right-hand side forwards or right wingers, then you might be in luck. We were quite lucky against Sheffield Wednesday that we didn't concede, and again, all of them came from Perez's side, just not stopping crosses, not stopping runs. But I do feel like ultimately we will have too much. I know you've recently had a win, and you might be buoyed by that, but then obviously I think you're kind of like walking into the path of the not the school bully, because that's clearly Leeds, but sort of like one of the maybe the school bully's disciples sort of thing. But I do feel like we'll get the job done. Ultimately, your best way has been pretty obvious throughout the season. Sit back, soak up pressure. Excuse me. Sit back, soak up pressure, and say break us down, because that's all these 0-0s. They've all been at Turf Moor apart from one, and the one that was away from home was at Oxford. And because all they did was sit there and say break us down. When Preston came to the Turf, Blackburn, even though that were 1-1, Derby, QPR, Stoke, all of these, they just sat back and said, we have no interest whatsoever in playing football. You have to break us down. And we just don't have the quality in the forward areas to be able to do that. The difference is now we have Marcus Edwards.
Yeah.
And I think he is the key in these sort of moments. The reason why we were 1-0 up against Sheffield Wednesday at half-time, despite offering absolutely nothing in that first half, and Sheffield Wednesday probably being the better side, was because of a moment of brilliance from Marcus Edwards. And I do feel like he's the key. But then teams will start focusing on him a little bit more, and that'll help Jadon Anthony, and that'll help maybe Lyle Foster, hopefully, or Zian Fleming or whatever. So, yeah, I do feel like we have enough. I do feel like I feel like we're kind of clicking at the right time, which feels of a bit of a weird thing to say after such a poor second-half performance against Cardiff. But like I said, 6 goals in the last 2. When you look at Burnley's season, that's quite a lot for Burnley's season, to be fair. So, yeah, even against Cardiff in that first half, we did play really, really well. First 5 minutes, to be fair, Cardiff were the better side. But then after that, we were by far and away the better side. Like I said, second half, a little bit left to the imagination. And Cardiff, like I said, should have equalised. But, yeah, I do think we have enough. I'm hoping that the fact that you guys... I'm just quickly looking at the league table. Again, you'll be able to correct me here, but I'm looking at it thinking you're 5 points away from Cardiff. If it gets to 0-0 and you're in the 75th minute, you might start thinking to yourselves, now's a chance to counter-attack early and maybe get a win. And if that is the case, I'm hoping that we have the quality to be able to pick you off. But yeah, we'll see. I do think we get over the line, though, unfortunately for you guys, but obviously fortunately for me.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's one of those ones, Joe, where, truth be told, the game against Pompey, as much as we're buoyed from the fact that we got 3 points, because that was absolutely the remit, it wasn't the most exciting display. It was very attritional as a game. So
yeah.
It's not like, weirdly, this might sound absolutely bizarre, but when we played against Sheffield United recently, we actually played really quite well.
Yeah, I was fuming with that, by the way, probably just as much as you were. But yeah, I did watch that, or saw highlights or messages on social media, whatever, thinking Luton are playing well here.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, but it's what it is, I guess.
So if we played like that against Pompey and won, it puts a totally different complexion on the game. But we'll see how it pans out. Like I say, I'm expecting it to be a really tough day out. So we'll see how it goes. But for now, Joe, I hope that you enjoy the game on Saturday, and best of luck for the rest of the season. Thanks again for joining me, mate.
No, thanks for asking me, mate. It's always a pleasure.
So everyone, that was what Joe had to say. He's predicting a 2-0 win for Burnley. It's a very, very rare thing for them, actually, to be playing on a Saturday at 3 p.m. I was discussing with him that the last time they did so was on the 21st of December. It's been a long old time since they've had a Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff. So let's hope that Luton Town can upset that particular party atmosphere up at Turf Moor on a Saturday 3 p.m. And do some damage to them. But truth be told, they need to. And anything that we get out of the game, I think will be not only well loved, but it will help with the survival push, because that's what it's got to be from now on. It's got to be all hands to the pump, pushing for survival. I personally think that it's going to be potentially a step too far, bearing in mind that Burnley have got aspirations to go up automatically. So it's going to be a really, really tough one. But as always, keep going, everyone. Keep supporting the team. There are sort of buds of hope. I think that the improvement has been there over the last few games in regards to looking a bit more solid, especially with Naismith at the back. So fingers crossed. Let's see how we go, and I hope that the likes of Izzy Jones and Doughty can cause them some problems. But I'll kick it back over to Ollie and Lewis, and for all of those that listen each week, take care. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it, mate. Always good to see Joe as well. And, he loves a gloat. He loves a gloat, doesn't he? Right. So, Lewis, who from this Burnley team is giving you sleepless nights? Who are you worrying about?
It's really, hang on, you're going to have to cut this. I need to look at their squad. I can't think of that.
I'm keeping it in. I'll start, right. While you have a look at the squads, I'm worried about Josh Brownhill. In the Premier League, I'd say he was out of his depth in the Premier League, but in the Championship, he is just an insane player. 11 goals from midfield, 4 assists. He is the dictator-in-chief. He controls everything from that Burnley midfield. Obviously, the defence as well is incredibly tough and very stubborn, and they don't give up much. And then there's, I'd say Egan Briley's probably the standout in defence, and I haven't even gotten onto their strikers and attackers yet. But I'll leave something for you, really. I'm worried about the whole team, essentially.
Well, looking at their squad now I actually remember who actually plays for Burnley. Left wing, Anthony. Now, 8 goal contributions so far this season. The reason why I'm a little bit concerned about him is because he does play on the left-hand side. Well, he can also play on the right-hand side as well. But the reason why I'm a bit concerned is because if Isaiah Jones is going to get forward, that will leave space in behind. And I think Anthony will really target that. And if we are going to play Makosso, he's going to be up against him. And Makosso being a young, inexperienced defender, that could be a battle which he might struggle with. But at least he does have the pace to be able to keep up with him. Also, former Champions League player in Marcus Edwards, who Burnley managed to bring in the January transfer window. I can't believe is playing in the Championship because he's definitely a Premier League quality player. So although he's only scored 1 goal so far, don't underestimate his quality because he's someone that, with a switch, can just turn it on.
Yeah, when he started against Cardiff, he didn't have the best of games. He obviously had a very good game against Sheffield Wednesday, but Burnley just countered. So the goal might have padded his stats for that game. I don't think he's had the impact that I thought he would. He hasn't exactly been like an Enzo Lefebvre for Sunderland, where Lefebvre's come in straight off the bat and started running the show. I thought Edwards would be more of a driving force and get Burnley to score more goals, to be honest. An interesting one is Zian Fleming up front, playing an attacking midfielder in a false 9. He's bagged 7 goals to them. He's done all right in that position. I feel he's going to be one that our defence might struggle to pick up, to be honest. I'm worried about that because we don't really do well with left wingers like Jayden Anthony, and we don't do well with false 9s that sort of sit in front of the defence.
And that's when you need a bit of leadership, a bit of experience like Cal Naismith to just guide the Luton defence. And also, as I've already mentioned in the video, Burnley are they're not front-footed side. So we don't need to be front-footed against them because that's what they're gonna want. They want to be a more of a counter-attacking side. So I think they struggle to break teams down. So if we do what other teams have done to us in the past, like a Preston or a Millwall, and put 11 players behind the ball, Burnley will get frustrated. Their fans will be on their back. They're only 2 points away from second place Sheffield United. They're only 5 points away from Leeds, who are top, who play on Sunday. So if they win at home against us, that puts them in a really good position. So their fans are going to want them to, be front-footed and go at us. And even if they do score 1 goal, for example, they don't often score that second goal. So we're still in the game.
They don't often concede the goal.
No, they don't.
Do they?
But we are one of the sides that have scored against them.
Yeah, what we
So,
account for 10% of all the goals that they've conceded this year is a 1 yard jammy tap in from Taheef Chong, wasn't it?
they all count. They all
They
count.
do all count. Yeah, it reminds me of when I tried out for my university football team, and I pretty much like ball landed to me on the line. I whiffed it, and it still went in. But they all count, and that's all that matters. Right, Lewis. Now it's time for score predictions.
Yeah, so I've gone with a 0-0 draw. I think it's got 0-0 written all over it. Burnley, who love defending, us don't really know how to score. And I think if you asked me before a ball was kicked, would you take a point away against Burnley? 100% yes, I would. And if we go through this game not losing and we could keep back-to-back clean sheets, you go into the game against Cardiff on the back of 2 positive results, in my opinion. I don't think the players would lose confidence not winning away to Burnley, who are third in the Championship. I think we'll look at this and go, actually, this is a good point. When we stayed up in the Championship under Nathan Jones, we went to Leeds and got a point. This is what we've got to do now. We've got to go to a tough place and grind out a result. So I think a 0-0 would be positive.
Yeah, I've gone for a 0-0 as well. It's sort of more heart over head in a way, mainly because Burnley don't score too much, and whether you like it or not, whether you like Bloomfield or not, the defence has looked so much better since he's come in. It certainly looks a whole lot better with Naismith in. I think that, as I said in our champ prediction show, the 0-0 is caveated. It has a big asterisk, and that asterisk is Cal Naismith. If Cal Naismith plays, I think we can get a 0-0. If not, then we will lose because the defence will be at 6s and 7s, all out at sea, and I'm not really happy with that. But I guess we'll see, really. But I completely agree with you. It's important we go into the Cardiff game with a positive result. We really do.
Yeah, 100%. That the Cardiff game is the more important one out of the two. Yes, every game is important right now, but you don't want to go into that Cardiff game on the back of a 3-0 defeat or 4-0 defeat. You want to go into it, with confidence. You want to go with it that the group themselves are positive and, they have the confidence to go to Cardiff because that's the game where you need to win. And that would be the statement. If we win at Cardiff away from home, then every Luton fan out there is going to go, okay, we do want to stay up in the Championship this season.
Yeah, and Cardiff gave Burnley a game as well, especially in that second half. They really had a good go at Burnley. But that's us done for this week. Quick reminder, if you're watching this and you've gotten through to the end and you're not subscribed, remember to hit that subscribe button. Also, you can check out Lewis's content. It's in the description below this video. Thank you very much, Lewis, for joining me, stepping up while Ryman is away. Everyone, have a great week, and it's almost time for that ball to get kicked on Saturday. As always, come on, you Hatters.